Tonight, when you step outside, someone nearby is lighting a cigarette. Roughly 1 in 5 adults on Earth regularly inhales burning plant matter into their lungs. We consider it a modern addiction. A habit born in bright factories and advertised on billboards. But that story is completely wrong. Humans did not learn to smoke for pleasure. We did not do it to look cool. Long before nicotine became a multi-billion-dollar industry, burning leaves was a life-or-death survival tool. Thousands of years ago, an unknown ancient human inhaled toxic smoke from a burning wild plant. Their chest burned, their eyes watered, but instead of running away, they decided to do it again. Why would our ancestors deliberately force poison into their bodies? To understand this insanity, we have to look back at the late Pleistocene era. Early humans had a terrifying problem. The night was full of predators, but it was also full of invisible blood-sucking insects. Mosquitoes and ticks didn't just cause itchiness. They carried lethal parasites that could wipe out an entire tribe in days. Archaeologist Dr. Karen Hardy discovered that early hominids noticed something strange about campfires. When certain green plants were thrown into the coals, the thick smoke drove away every insect in the area. Fire was warmth, but smoke was a chemical shield. For thousands of years, humans stood directly in plumes of toxic plant smoke just to survive the night. We breathed it in because coughing was better than dying of malaria. Then, around 5000 BC, something shifted in the Americas. High in the Andes Mountains, hunter-gatherers discovered a specific wild nightshade plant, Nicotiana tabacum. When thrown onto the fire, this plant didn't just repel bugs. It altered the brain. Early shamanic leaders realized that inhaling this specific smoke caused intense dizziness, heightened focus, and suppressed hunger. In a world where food was scarce and death was constant, this was not viewed as a drug. It was viewed as divine possession. Sociologist Dr. Rob Benschop notes that ancient indigenous tribes believed smoke was the only physical substance that could bridge two worlds. It started as a solid plant, transformed into fire, and vanished into thin air. If you wanted to talk to the gods or your dead ancestors, you didn't pray with words. You blew smoke toward the sky. By 1000 BC, the Mayans carved the very first image of a human smoking into stone at the Temple of Palenque. It shows a Mayan priest puffing on a rolled leaf tube. Smoking was restricted exclusively to sacred rituals, medicinal healing, and declaration of war. It was so intense that priests would pass out from massive nicotine overdoses to receive visions. So how did a whole spiritual ritual turn into a pack of cigarettes bought at a gas station? The entire trajectory of human history flipped in October 1492. When Christopher Columbus stepped onto the beaches of the Bahamas, local Taino people greeted him with gifts. They offered fruit, wooden spears, and a bundle of dried, pungent leaves. Columbus had no idea what the leaves were. He threw them overboard. But his sailors watched the natives. 2 crew members, Rodrigo de Jerez and Luis de Torres, saw indigenous villagers rolling the dried leaves, lighting one end, and drinking the smoke. Rodrigo tried it. The nicotine hit his bloodstream in less than 10 seconds. When Rodrigo returned to Spain, he lit up a rolled tobacco leaf in the streets of his hometown. His neighbors were horrified. Black smoke was pouring out of his mouth and nose. The Spanish Inquisition immediately arrested him. They believed Rodrigo was possessed by the devil. He was thrown into prison for 3 years. By the time Rodrigo was released from his cell, he discovered something unbelievable. He wasn't a pariah anymore. Tobacco had invaded all of Europe. Sailors brought seeds from the Americas. Kings, noblemen, and peasants became hopelessly hooked. Doctors erroneously prescribed tobacco for headaches, toothaches, and even cancer. By 1600, tobacco was more valuable than silver. In 1881, an American mechanic named James Bonsack invented a machine that changed human biology forever. Before Bonsack, every cigarette had to be rolled by hand. A skilled worker could make about 4 per minute. Bonsack's machine produced 200 per minute, dropping the cost of smoking to virtually zero. Mass production turned an ancient sacred poison into a daily mindless habit. By the 1950s, over half of the adult population in Western nations smoked daily. It took millions of years for evolution to design human lungs to inhale clean, oxygen-rich air. Yet, in less than 2 centuries, industrial mass production convinced billions of us to fill those lungs with toxic tar. Today, when you see someone light a cigarette on a cold night, you aren't watching a modern habit. You are watching a 7,000-year-old ghost of human survival, flickering in the dark.